Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Game Club, show where we're all together, in it together with color, coloring the world. We're playing Chicory, a colorful tale. I'm your host, Boss, and playing this
Yes.
on the PlayStation 5. I'm joined, as always, by Moonpear
Howdy. Xbox Series X, I guess.
and Musum.
Xbox Series X.
Well, let's get into the game's details here. Was released on June 10th, 2021 for OS X, Windows, PS4, and PS5. December 15th, 2021 on Switch. May 30th, 2023 on Xbox One and Series consoles. Published by Finji, developed by Craig Lobanov. I just want to put a special note on here. Composed by the ever-incredible Lena Raine. So, big shout-outs to Lena Raine. Time travel here, Metacritic 90, OpenCritic 88. Peers for the release date, Moon, you're going to love this one, Griftlands.
Yeah.
The game that contains
we can
multitudes.
never remember the name of.
That's right. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So that was a pretty good month. A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Let's ask the question we ask every month. Was this game top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked?
I think on its original release, this was probably middle of the pack. Because based on the circle of people I listen to when it comes to this kind of stuff, this was getting quite a few little nods as being a particularly cool little game.
I evidently I just don't listen to any video game news ever at all. So I had never heard of this until you guys suggested it.
I'm actually going to go with top of the pile because when it came out, they were like, oh, the guy who designed Wander Song is teaming up with the woman who did the music for Celeste. Now they're putting this thing on Kickstarter. And then it seemed like it got a ton of coverage pretty early on. Plus, it was also originally called Draw Dog, which was a less great title, but a very entertaining title nonetheless.
Had a very appropriate title, too.
Yeah. Okay, before we get into the game here, as usual, spoilers are probably going to be abound. This is on PlayStation Plus and Game Pass, so if you want to go play it, you probably own it on one of those platforms already. If not, it seems to be on sale pretty often, so scoop it up for whatever price feels appropriate, and jump on in as a dog who paints the world. All right, let's get into the game itself here. Chicory, who wants to start? Actually, let's start off with what we named our dog. What was your main character's name? Pizza.
Gosh, I don't actually remember.
Okay, what's your favorite food, Musum? That's the question.
Yeah, what's your favorite thing?
I either put pizza or fried chicken. I feel like I put pizza because fried chicken wouldn't fit.
Yeah,
Sushi. Okay, so my name was Sushi then.
Okay, Sushi's a good name for a dog. That's a pretty. I was pretty tickled by playing this game and reading pizza aloud a lot when Chicory was yelling pizza. So that was pretty good.
There was a lot of pizza. A lot of pizza.
Yeah. I do like that, and I do like that it is kind of Earthbound inspired. Of what's your favorite thing? And you guys just go, yeah, I don't know, and it says, all right, here's something, pizza. And it's like, yep, sure. I love pizza. Why not? Also, special shout out for pretty much any time you can choose anything in this game, including stuff in the options menu where it's like yep or nah, like wet sounds. It's like no, or yeah, that's fine. So big shout out to a cool options menu. I like that.
Yes, and I do like the certain characters have certain fonts trick as well, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, like BlackBerry has that very thin, formal font. I think it's BlackBerry.
Yes, and then you got the young fox, I think it is. I can't remember the fox's name, who speaks in text speak.
Yes,
and
that font is really good.
Lol.
Yep, it's a very good font. I really like that one.
Also, So I will say, get this out the way. I
Mhm.
didn't beat this game.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot of time. Obviously, I discussed this with you two beforehand.
Hmm.
You saw, you saw what I posted. You know what I did.
Yeah,
Um,
time was at a premium this past month.
yes.
Yeah.
So I only made it probably about halfway through the game, I would say.
Okay.
And I completely didn't have time to watch a video of it or anything. But I will say, this. I will make sure that end of year discussions are corrected because this now
Mm,
gives me the rest of the year to play this game, and
true.
I probably will do because I played most of this in co-op, and it seems to have been a hit,
Hmm.
um, a very very big hit, we'll say.
Yeah,
So,
I actually played the entirety of this game co-op with my daughter from the very first moment until the very ending
mhm.
of it. Which it was
Seems like the
also
perfect way to play.
yeah, it was also a very big hit over here. Largely she's spent the entire time holding down the L2 button and just painting everything, which is great.
Mhm.
Um, her review of the game, I asked her for her review last night, and she said, Daddy, make sure you tell the internet that you wouldn't have been able to beat Chicory without my help. And I was like, okay, fair
The
enough.
way it should be.
Yeah, also true, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But yeah,
My
it was
favorite,
a big hit.
yeah,
So
my
I
favorite part of playing a co-op was while you controlling the dog, the second person just has a paint cursor essentially.
Yep.
And while you're in cutscenes and everything, the second person just spends their time being a troll and painting everything.
It's really good, especially if you're gonna play with someone younger. That because I spend the entire my daughter can read pretty well, but the game the text can move pretty quickly at points, so I read the entire thing out loud.
Mhm.
So during some of the more intense conversations, a lot of the time spent was her being like, "Oh, can I color Chicory this color?" And it's like, "Sure, we're talking about self-loathing and self-doubt, but yes, she can be pink and yellow at the same time."
Yes.
so
Or
I did not beat it, and I barely made it anywhere. I made it to like mid chapter two, maybe.
okay,
Um, Unfortunately, it was just it partly was a bad month for me, and then the other part was I realized 2 weeks ago I needed to start the game and hadn't. Um, so it's all my fault, but anyway, I
or just putting it on the record.
yes,
Life finds a
Yeah,
way. It's fine.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing about it's the same thing about book clubs. Sometimes you can finish the book, sometimes you can't. It's all good, no big deal. Um, yeah, I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about needing to color the world in the game, and I think once you start getting the brush powers, I think that the necessity of you having to color the world makes it feel a little bit better. Um,
Hmm.
and then with so many things in the world that can eat your colors or remove the colors from the environment in the back half of the game, I think that made me feel a little bit better because I was really worried as someone who isn't creative or artistic. I was really worried that it was going to have to be like, oh, paint something in this environment in a specific way to progress. And there was never really any puzzle like that. There were like designing the t-shirts, designing the holy and stuff, coloring Chicory's portrait. Like there were freeform painting and coloring things, but the game genuinely didn't care what you did there, which I thought was really great. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really enjoyed the art class. uh,
Oh, I
you know,
don't
I
think I
only got
did
to
that.
do oh
Really?
it
When you get this, it's part of the story, isn't it? Where you get the stamps and
yeah
you get like the D-pad stamps.
Nope, didn't do that. Wow. Okay.
huh.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
All right.
yeah,
The
dude.
stamps are kind of cool because like it gives you like a heart or a star, and you can just hold the button down and drag it around, and
And
just
he goes,
stamps a bunch of them.
Oh man.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
No, I wish I did that. Jeez.
Star tattoos. A lot of people like getting, but
Interesting.
Yes. I will say though, the part of that whole like the stamps and stuff you get in the art class. So the blank canvases that are all over the place, Boston. You
Hmm.
go to art class, you do a piece of art based on you copy a piece of art, then that gets placed around the world.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
So that's what the blank canvases around the world are for.
Okay.
And part of that is you do like you get like a bunch of extra like stamps. Like you can basically it's like changing your paintbrush in Illustrator or Photoshop, where like
Okay.
now
I
you're
I picked
painting
up a
with a
bunch of
cross.
brush styles throughout the world,
Yes,
and Pizza
that is
was always
them.
like, I don't know what that. I don't know how to use these yet. And my daughter and I were
Mhm.
like, okay. I don't
Yep.
know where
So
I'm supposed to
you
do that.
equip them on the D-pad, and like so you can get some that like textures. So like I got
Right.
like a dotted one, so that like if you painted the ground, it would make the ground like this dotted
Like a
texture.
dot matrix texture.
Yes.
That's cool.
And then I ended up finding one which had a wave effect to
Oh,
it.
fun.
I couldn't use it because it made me nauseous the second I started seeing it.
Okay. Oh, I do have to say, I kind of like that Chicory lets you play without finding that stuff. Like, if you didn't want to do it or you didn't stumble on it, the game is just like, yeah, man, cool, whatever. You don't have to do it. That's fine. You don't have
that
to go
is.
to art class.
Well, real quick on the art class, I have to say the fun part was you have all these students, like 3 or 4 of them. One of them's your sister and or sibling. I don't remember what gender they were, but um, one of the kids just hates that you're the wielder and is just like snooty and whatever, and they'll
Its
be like, "Yes,
condescension
interpret
is
this
real.
drawing,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you'll paint the drawing, and then the whole class will be like, "Oh man, I feel like I'm there," and like the person who's like jealous of you is like, "What are you talking about?" Like
Boo! It sucks.
everyone's like, "Oh man, I have to think about this such depth. I feel like I can, like I'm there with the farmer."
That's pretty fun because everybody in the world, except for kind of yourself and sometimes Chicory, is way into you being the wielder. And I like that there is someone out there that's like, man, this wielder sucks. Goodness, man, that's kind of fun. I like that. Um, I I think my only real big criticism of this game is the one boss battle. I'm not sure if you guys got into it, where you can't. So every time you go into a boss battle, you have to kind of paint on top of the enemy, whether it's the eyeballs or whoever you're fighting, and that'll do
Uh-huh.
damage to the enemy. Um, there are a couple of boss fights where you need to paint essentially the mirror version of it. So if you're painting on the left side, there's a mirror paintbrush that's painting on the right side. You only do damage with the mirrored paintbrush.
Ugh.
That was really, really hard because you're trying to avoid the enemy attacks and the enemy and paint on the wrong side, but you're trying to mirror it and moving both characters at the same time. That was where it was super helpful playing in co-op because it's like, okay, I'm going to
Yes.
avoid the attacks. You paint on the left side, and it will hit the enemy on the right side. And otherwise, the like left brain, right brain nature of that was not it was not happening for me.
So what I really like the boss battles that I saw in this. I especially like the
Yep.
fact that they're essentially just funky music videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like pixelated music videos, which God, that's probably the best music in the game, in my opinion.
That song is really good, and if you like some of the early boss battles, some of the later ones are really really cool. Like I think maybe the last handful of them, they do some really interesting things with painting patterns on the ground that I thought worked really well. Recommendation from me: maybe make yourself invulnerable for those last couple of boss fights because those are pretty
Yeah.
spicy. And that last boss battle is really long, not in a bad way, but just like, oh, I can take 3 hits and then I get knocked down and have to start back over again. I'm gonna make myself invincible. There we go. I I really appreciated how this game took its story seriously. Like it is a real story about not only doubting your art but doubting yourself and kind of dealing with um, your place in the world and your place in what people expect of you and sort of what society expects from you. And I think it's really great that they kind of took that seriously and didn't really make light of it. Like it's not like a super hardcore story, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not super light at the end of the day either. And I
No, it's
really
definitely got heart to it though. Like there's a
yeah
lot of heart in this,
yeah
and depression and everything else that goes with that.
right, but I think um, I was really happy with the way that it the story ended up, um, especially with so once you hit the halfway point of the story, you go on the wielder trials, and you have to go to the four corners of the map. What's the world called? Picnic, I think. Um, you have to go to the four
I think
corners
so.
and you do a trial at each one of them. They're all fairly easy. Like nothing in this game is very long or very difficult. Um, but one of them, the one in the southeastern corner, and are directly led into the resolution of the story at the ending. And I liked that not only you get closure and you kind of get clarity on what it means to be a wielder and what it means to follow up on expectations and stuff, but Chicory herself gets a really great ending as well, where she kind of gets a resolution on everything that she's been struggling with throughout the whole game. And I think it feels like an appropriate ending that gives her some level of empowerment, that she gets to make her own ending, she gets to make her own decision without you as you as pizza. You don't like hand the solution to her, and she doesn't hand the solution to you. You both kind of find your own way, artistically and in the world, which I really really appreciated. It's a good closure to that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get far enough to have much of an opinion on the story, but encountering Chicory depressed in her room was like, oh, there may be more here than I'm expecting.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, overall, this felt like honestly, for a kind of a side scroller adventure color game, it felt kind of AAA, like in a lot of ways. Like
yeah,
the animations were real top notch. I like
yeah.
how a lot of the times when you're coloring something in, it gives you a little bit of resistance when you hit the line in case you are actually trying to color inside the lines. Like,
And on
Yes.
PS5, they used the DualSense really well for that stuff. Where when you start coloring or when you're going over lines like that, there's resistance on the triggers, so it feels like you're kind of putting the brush to the paper and kind of scraping it across in a way that felt pretty good. And they use the quote unquote wet sounds in the game. A lot of the painting, kind of like splashing sounds, came out of the speaker in the controller too. So
that's cool.
that felt pretty fun.
That's
Like
really cool.
being able to change it, like the noise where you change the color or you change the size of the brush. That stuff came out of the controller speaker too, which really tickled my kid. She had the controller up to her head and she's like tapping L1. It just squish, 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 squish. And she's just like, yeah, that's cool. It's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that is cool. Thanks, guys.
I like how the large brush size also would always go over the line.
Yes, that's true. Yep.
I like how I don't know. You can paint everything on the screen, but you don't always think about it or think like, oh, I'm gonna paint this cloud that's passing by. Yes, you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, and I also like too that there's some stuff you can't paint for a really long time until you get an upgraded brush, like your relationship with the brush continues to evolve. And I like the kind of Metroidvania freedom of like, oh, now I can color that stuff, and oh, now this power lets me go up or down this thing. Okay, cool. Now I know another place for me to go to kind of continue the story,
Yeah.
which I liked
And like
a lot.
I like the fact that it's kind of a sly little Metroidvania thrown in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Where here is a bunch of traversal abilities um, to find new spaces and new things to do. I will say it has one of my least favorite abilities in any of these types of games, and that is this one. It is Minish Cap was particularly bad for this too,
Mm.
which is don't make me find little holes. Like
They are really hard to find in this game sometimes.
I
I
hate
That
little
was
holes.
frustrating. Yeah.
Phrasing, but it's like that ability is the one that kills me because it's like
The like Splatoon go into the paint ability.
yes,
Yeah.
because it's like great. So now I have to basically paint every single floor and then run myself across every single edge on every single screen to see if there
Yeah.
is a little hole there because that's what I had to do in Minish Cap 2 with that stupid shrinking ability.
Yeah, thankfully there really aren't too many of them in this game, and if there's going to be, it's like it looks like there's a long thin opening underneath something. And I think we only ran into maybe less than 5 of them in the game overall,
Uh-huh.
which is pretty nice. Most of the time you're kind of coming out of them out of a cave and you're like, "Oh, it went under that bridge." Okay, interesting. That being said, I I really did like that none of the puzzles were completely impossible. I think there were some that were some good head scratchers, but none of the ones we ran into were really just like looking at a screen and saying like, I don't know what to do here at all. Like, what do you expect me to do here? And if you did get trapped, I like going to the phone booths and talking to your mom, and then her being like,
Yes.
your dad wants to talk to you, which my daughter really loved, like your dad's hand coming out of the side of the screen. Um, and then if you talk to him, which is optional, he'll just give you the answer where it's like, go over 2 screens, go down 1 more, and then you'll be there and solve the puzzle there. I like that there's is that there were 1 or 2 times where the game's like, oh yeah, like go find a new path. And it's like, where am I even supposed to go? And dad'll just be like, oh yeah, you got to go through this cave and there'll be a new exit out of there. And it's like, okay, oh yeah, right, okay, we could go left this time now. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate having like kind of 2 levels of assistance there.
So as dumb as this is, like the only time I got stuck in the game is when you pick up the brush at the very beginning. That
Oh yeah,
legit took me 2 or 3 minutes to figure out like what the heck is it wanting me to do?
where am
I
I
don't
supposed? I
under
can't leave. Yeah,
like I was expecting the character to like do the painting themselves. I was not thinking about the independent cursor and
yeah.
threw me off
Yeah.
for a bit.
That threw me off a couple of times when you get a new brush power. You drop the brush and pick it back up. So you'd
I
like go into
always
one
forget
of
to
those
pick it up.
spooky trees and you fight a boss, and then you're like, "Yep, ready to go." And the game's like, get back here." It's like, "Oh, right, yeah, I need to pick it back up." Yep. Okay, coming back.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. I don't. It's kind of a hard game to talk about because it's it is
It's basic. Like it is a very
yeah.
basic kind of game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, basic parentheses complementary.
Yes.
It's like there isn't really too much to it because, like we talked about, it is kind of a secret Metroidvania where you kind of can't get to a bunch of areas, and then you'll get a new ability, and you can paint this thing or climb up this thing or go down this thing, so you'll go to another area, and the game is fairly honest about where you're supposed to go next, and there's plenty of puzzles to solve for picking up litter or opening gifts or things like that. And that stuff feels really rewarding, but I do like a lot of times where you can you can go into a dead end and see that there's a puzzle there, and I'm like, nope, bye, and just leave. And that the game genuinely does not care. It's like, I don't really want to do this puzzle right now. I'm not even going to worry about it, which is really good.
It
But
seems to me to be like the perfect kids game. Like
yeah,
the entire
Yeah.
time I've been playing it, I'm like, man, I gotta get my friend who's an artist to play this with his kids, because like
yep.
this would be perfect for them. Like,
Yeah,
um,
and there were only a couple of times I needed to have my kid not play because you're like pretty early on you run into these big globes that turn out to be kind of like paint bombs, and you color them, they
Yeah,
explode and they like blow up rocks and stuff. There were a couple of
and you
times
can
where
push them.
yeah, and I'm like, I need to push this down and around and up and maneuver it before you can color it once I get to the end. But like, I need to push this and not have it blow up halfway through
yeah,
my journey here. But thankfully there were very few times where I had to be like, I just hold on for 2 seconds, I'll move this and then you can color it. So it was pretty nice to play a co-op like that. But I agree and I like too that there aren't two pizzas. It's just you play as pizza, and then the second player plays as another paintbrush. So eventually,
Mhm.
for us, it was really I'm going to move pizza around the environment, and then my daughter is going to color everything and say like, okay, now we're here.
Yeah.
We need to go up there. Do you see where you need to color? And it's like, okay, and color the path, and then get our way up there.
Mhm.
So
There's a lot of inventive puzzles in here. Like guiding
mhm.
the mouse through the caves, I thought was a really nice little
Yep,
puzzle.
yep,
Um, I'd like the I like that if you don't you very much in a Fez kind of way. If you don't use the phone, and the phone is there as an option. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing actually. It's
mhm.
hint answer if you need it.
Right.
Um, but like even then, it's very naturally using the language of video games to teach you how to do things.
Hmm.
Like I saw the explodey balls, and I did the whole okay. I'm going to paint a line and see if they're painting a line between that and that. Because at the time, it was when you go up, you see them, they blow up, but you can't do anything with them because later you learn that you can push them. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
because I
literally
thought
just
like
learned I can push them.
draw a fuse to it and see if that works.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's exactly what I tried to, and that didn't work.
Yep.
And it's like, cool, fine, whatever. We'll figure out. It's probably an upgrade at some point.
Yep.
And then, yeah, it turns out that it's no, you can push them, which you do that by accident when you're trying to figure out what to do in that map,
Hmm.
and then like you hit it with your body, and you're just like, oh,
There it is.
there it is. Now I'm
Yep.
gonna push it over to the rocks and blow up the rocks.
Yep.
I will say the dot puzzles are really hilarious to me. Like
Mm.
the way
Yep.
it gives you the hints.
Yep.
I hated I think it was the shrine, the wielder's shrine.
Yeah, the butt temple.
When 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 the answer was in the vines, like you
Yeah.
went to the next room and
Yep.
it was the dots were the rooms, but you could travel backwards and forwards using vines.
Yep. I kept
That really annoyed me.
I kept going in circles, and I'm like, I can't get to the other side. Like, there's no way for me to traverse. And then I counted, and I was like, oh, there are 9. Oh, there's 9 dots. Oh, the line. Okay, I see it. Let's go try it out. And that worked. And I was like, okay, all right. That took me
Yeah.
a minute. That was probably the hardest puzzle out of all of them, just because I think it was the most obfuscated. But that was still a pretty good one.
Yeah. Oh geez, what else was there? Be careful if you're playing this co-op, because if you happen to be playing it with a troll, be prepared to be trolled a lot, is all I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anytime
Yeah.
I looked at the map would start getting painted, and I was like, really? I'm just trying to see where I am.
My
And now
problem
it's just a giant black squiggle.
my problem was if you click in the right stick, it zooms in. So she would do that by accident, moving the paintbrush around. So then I would have to click in the right stick, which would zoom it back in, and then click it again to zoom it out. So we'd be like 3 times we'd be zooming in and out on the same screen. I'm like, please, this is so good for you learning how to use a controller. We're working on that. We're working on using a mouse. Just please, just a little less pressure, please. But yeah, the map especially was a lot of like, why are we looking at the map? Let's go color. It's like, I need to figure out where to go. Like, I don't know where we're going. Co-op games. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. I really liked this game. I don't
Me
think
too.
I don't think I knew the reception I had seen from so many people going into it was like, oh, it's the best of 2021. It's an outstanding game. It's so incredible. And from the outside looking in, you're just sort of like, yeah,
It's a coloring game.
yeah. And I'm like, what is it though?
I like quite literally have a book that I carry around in my backpack, which is a coloring game. So
Right. So it's like, what are we doing here? But it is a really good coloring game, but it's also a good puzzle game. It's also a good Metrovania, and it's also a really good, honest look at like struggling as a creator and struggling as someone who is growing
yes.
up and growing older and having expectations of or have it struggling with expectations being passed onto you, maybe sort of against your will, and trying to find your way in the world. I thought it was super cool. I thought this game was really great, and turned out to be kind of accidentally a really great co-op game too, which I was not expecting at all. So, yeah. Final thoughts from you, Moon?
It was enjoyable. Like I said, like this. If it wasn't for the time, I would like my time constraints, I should say.
Right.
I probably would have played a lot more of this. It's like this has hit a positive nerve in this household. So like,
Right.
I'm looking forward to actually going and like getting it taken care of, getting time to play it, and then sitting down and just like now that I don't have to think about gotta beat it for the show. Now I can just take my time at it and then just chip away at it bit by bit.
Yeah, you could kind of be like, oh, let's go play Chicory. And it's like, yeah, all right, we can like sit down for an hour and play some of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's like, I think they said there's 10 chapters.
There are, yeah.
So it's a really good thing to have that opportunity to be like, cool, we'll do a chapter. Because they're not that long. If you're doing the story like quote unquote mainlining it, they're really not that long at all.
Yeah, each chapter took me like 30 to 45 minutes a piece. So it's a really good, like, we can sit down, we can do one, and then we can kind of... My kid would start getting a little bit bored. And it's like, all right, we can wrap up this chapter. It says like, oh, here's chapter 5, and then we can save the game and keep moving. So that's a good point. Musim, what's your final thoughts here?
So I didn't play a ton, but I really liked it. And I think if you have it on PlayStation Plus or Game Pass, you should absolutely check it out. It's way more fun than you might think it would be.
Yeah,
I'd say like, while the story may be quick, if you're the type where you're like, I'm going to color a little bit on every screen, that is going to dramatically increase your time in the game.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm fairly certain I spent 4 or 5 hours in the game.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the cool things as well, Musim, is when you get the map, it's like a tablet, and when you pull it up, it holds the colors on the map. So anything you've painted shows in as colored as you've painted it on the map for each of those screens.
Well, that's awesome.
And when you beat the game, it gives you a full time lapse of everything from the very first moment you played across a larger version of that tablet map. So every time you uncovered a new map tile, it'll fill that in, and then it'll fill in, as you filled in, it'll fill in your colors. So it's really fun to see you kind of like snake your way through the map and color stuff in and not color other stuff in. It's a very cool kind of like final capstone on the game.
That's fun. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, well, that's Chicory, A Colorful Tale as a game for our last month here. Let's talk about our next game. We're going to play The Bookwalker, Thief of Tales. which came out PC, Xbox One, Series consoles, PS4, and PS5. This is currently on Game Pass. And this is a game that we sort of stumbled upon today and thought, hey, that looks cool. We don't know anything about it, so let's dive in. We're going to play The Bookwalker, Thief of Tales for next month. I hope you'll join us then.
Was that a joke? Was that a joke? Let's dive in. I hate you so much.
Chapter by chapter. Yeah, I don't the book diver. Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.